Welcome to World Rare Coins Vault, where we uncover fascinating coins, hidden treasures, and the stories behind Britain's most interesting pieces. Today, we're counting down the top 5 rare £1 coins that collectors may want to look out for. From circulated and fine examples to older, good, and dusty condition coins, each one has its own story and collector appeal. So, stay with us until the end, and don't forget to subscribe to World Rare Coins Vault for more rare coin discoveries. Let's get started up with the £1 coin dated 1991, a coin that many people may have handled without ever wondering whether it could be more interesting or desirable to collectors. If you have an old pound coin tucked away in a drawer, a box, or a collection, stay with me until the end, because we are going to explore the history, design, weight, condition, rarity, and potential collector interest surrounding the 1991 £1 coin. And remember to subscribe to World Rare Coin Vault for more fascinating British coins, unusual varieties, and exciting discoveries from the world of numismatics. The 1991 £1 coin belongs to an important period in modern British coinage. The pound coin had already become a familiar part of everyday life in the United Kingdom, and millions of these coins circulated through shops, banks, tills, pockets, and purses. Because of that widespread circulation, finding a 1991 example today in heavily used condition is not necessarily unusual. However, this is where coin collecting becomes much more interesting. Collectors do not simply look at the date. They examine the entire coin, including the design, lettering, strike quality, surface condition, edge, possible varieties, and signs of unusual production. A coin that appears ordinary at first glance can sometimes attract much greater attention when it has an interesting characteristic or survives in exceptionally well-preserved condition. On the obverse, the 1991 £1 coin carries the portrait of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Raphael Maklauf. This portrait shows the Queen facing to the right and wearing the royal diadem. Around the portrait are the inscriptions associated with the monarch and the denomination period. For collectors, the obverse is particularly important because small details can help confirm the exact type of coin being examined. Looking closely at the lettering, portrait, rim, and surrounding details can also help identify damage or unusual features that may have occurred during circulation. Turning the coin over reveals the reverse design, which is one of the most recognizable features of the traditional British pound coin. The reverse carries a design representing the royal shield of arms, surrounded by the inscription and denomination details. The intricate design gives the coin a distinctive appearance and reflects the long tradition of British heraldic imagery on circulating currency. When examining an older pound coin, it is worth looking closely at the central design, the outer lettering, the rim, and the smaller details. Heavy circulation can gradually soften these areas, making a well-preserved example much more appealing to collectors. The 1991 £1 coin has a weight of approximately 9.5 grams and was produced in a nickel-brass composition. Its size and substantial feel made the original pound coin instantly recognizable in everyday transactions. If you have one in your collection, using a reliable digital scale can be an interesting first step in examining it. However, weight alone does not prove that a coin is rare or valuable. Collectors normally consider several characteristics together, including diameter, thickness, metal composition, condition, design type, and any genuine minting anomaly. Now we come to the question that everyone wants answered. What could a circulated 1991 £1 coin actually be worth today? The important point is that a normal circulated example should not automatically be considered a thousands of dollars coin. Its value is generally influenced by its condition, authenticity, demand, and whether it possesses a recognized variety or genuine minting error. A heavily circulated example with scratches, marks, and worn details may have only modest collector interest, while an unusually sharp example with attractive surfaces can be considerably more interesting. You may see sensational claims online suggesting that an ordinary 1991 £1 coin could be worth $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, or even $50,000. These figures should be treated as hypothetical or promotional figures unless supported by genuine sales evidence. For example, if someone advertised a supposed example at $5,000, that does not mean the coin has a market value of $5,000. An asking price is not the same as a completed sale. The same applies to dramatic claims of $10,000 or $20,000. Those numbers can make an exciting thumbnail or video title. But collectors should always separate attention-grabbing claims from verified market prices. For a circulated 1991 one-pound coin, the real attraction is often the possibility of discovering something unusual rather than assuming every example is a hidden fortune. Check the coin carefully under good lighting. Look for unusual doubling, missing details, abnormal lettering, an unusual edge, striking problems, or other characteristics that appear to be part of the original minting process rather than damage caused after the coin entered circulation. Do not clean the coin aggressively. Scrubbing, polishing, or using chemicals can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce its desirability to collectors. Condition is also extremely important. A circulated coin can show contact marks, scratches, dull surfaces, and wear on the highest points of the design. That does not make it worthless, but it normally places it below a genuinely high-grade example. If your 1,991 pound has unusually strong detail and attractive original surfaces despite having been circulated, it may deserve a closer examination. There is something especially enjoyable about collecting coins like this, because excitement does not always come from finding a fortune. Sometimes it comes from holding a piece of British history that has traveled through thousands of transactions and survived for decades. Your 1991 one-pound coin may have been carried in someone's pocket, placed into a shop till, used for a journey, saved in a drawer, and eventually discovered by a collector many years later. That story is part of the coin's character. So, before you spend or discard that old 1991 one-pound coin, take another look. Check the date, study the portrait, examine the reverse, inspect the edge, consider the condition, and look carefully for anything genuinely unusual. And if you come across claims of spectacular value such as $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, or even $50,000, remember that these should not be accepted as guaranteed values without strong evidence from real transactions and recognized numismatic sources. Next up, the 1995 British one-pound coin in fine condition. At first glance, it may look like a familiar old pound that once passed through countless hands, but coins from the 1990s can still attract attention when their date, design, condition, and unusual characteristics are examined carefully. So, if you have a 1995 one-pound coin sitting in an old collection, a box, a drawer, or perhaps even an inherited group of coins, stay with me, because we're going to explore its story, appearance, weight, condition, rarity, and the exciting question of what collectors might be willing to pay for an interesting example today. The 1995 one-pound belongs to the classic generation of British pound coins that became an everyday part of life before the introduction of a newer 12-sided pound in 2017. During this period, the one-pound coin was widely used across the United Kingdom, appearing in shops, vending machines, public transport transactions, and ordinary day-to-day purchases. Because these coins circulated so extensively, finding a 1995 example is not automatically a sign of extreme rarity. However, coin collecting is about much more than simply finding an old date. Collectors study the smallest details, including the quality of the strike, the amount of wear, the appearance of surfaces, the edge, the lettering, and any unusual features that could potentially make one example more interesting than another. When we look at the front of the 1995 one-pound coin, we see the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II facing to the right. The portrait was designed by Raphael Maklauf and was used on British coins during this period. The Queen wears a royal diadem, giving the obverse a distinctly traditional appearance. Around the portrait are the inscriptions identifying the monarch, while the date appears as part of the coin's overall design. For collectors, this side is worth examining closely because the condition of the portrait can tell us a great deal about how much the coin has circulated. On a fine condition example, some of the higher points of the portrait and surrounding design may show visible wear, but the major features should remain clearly recognizable. Turn the coin over and the reverse reveals a heraldic royal shield design associated with the traditional British pound. The detailed shield and surrounding inscription create a strong visual connection with Britain's long history of heraldry and royal coinage. This reverse design is one of the features that makes the older pound coins so recognizable. On a fine example, You would expect to see noticeable circulation wear, especially across the higher parts of the shield and other raised details. Nevertheless, the main design should still be clear enough for the coin to be identified confidently. A collector examining the reverse should also inspect the lettering, rim, and edge for anything that appears genuinely unusual. The 1995 1-pound coin weighs approximately 9.5 grams and was made from nickel brass. That substantial metallic feel is one of the reasons these older pound coins were so easily recognized in everyday use. If you own one, checking its weight with a reasonably accurate digital scale can be an interesting part of the examination. However, weight by itself cannot establish rarity or value. A proper evaluation normally considers several factors together, including weight, diameter, design, condition, authenticity, and whether the coin displays a legitimate minting variety or error. However, the story becomes more interesting if an example has an unusual characteristic, an especially attractive appearance, a recognized variety, or a genuine minting error. This is where careful inspection becomes important. You may encounter dramatic claims online suggesting that a 1995 1-pound coin could be worth $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, or even $50,000. These figures can certainly make an exciting story, but they should be understood as hypothetical high-end claims rather than guaranteed prices for an ordinary fine-condition coin. For example, imagine a highly unusual example being advertised at $5,000. That does not automatically mean someone will actually pay $5,000 for it. A genuine market value should be supported by credible evidence, preferably involving completed sales of comparable coins. The same principle applies to spectacular claims such as $10,000 or $25,000. An advertised price is simply an asking price until a real buyer actually completes the transaction. For the ordinary collector, the most exciting possibility is discovering a genuine feature that separates the coin from normal examples. Examine the date carefully and compare the lettering with known examples. Look at the portrait, the reverse shield, and the outer rim. Pay particular attention to anything that appears to have been created during the minting process rather than through years of circulation. Scratches, dents, stains, and accidental damage are common on circulated coins and generally should not be mistaken for valuable mint errors. The fine condition of this particular 1995 1-pound coin is also important. Fine condition means the coin has experienced noticeable circulation and some of the finer details have been worn down. That is completely normal for a coin that spent years in everyday use. Collectors generally value originality, and you should avoid polishing or aggressively cleaning the coin in an attempt to make it look newer. Cleaning can leave scratches or unnatural surfaces, and may actually make the coin less desirable to experienced collectors. If you believe your 1995 1-pound has something unusual about it, photograph both sides in good natural or neutral lighting, and take a clear photograph of the edge as well. Keep the coin in a protective holder or suitable coin capsule rather than loose in a container where it can repeatedly rub against other coins. If you are considering a significant valuation, seek an opinion from a reputable coin dealer or professional numismatist who can physically examine the piece. This is particularly important when someone claims that an ordinary-looking coin is worth thousands of dollars. And that is what makes the 1995 1-pound so interesting. It may have been an everyday coin, but today it can become part of collectors' search for unusual dates, varieties, and minting discoveries. Perhaps yours is simply a nice example of British circulating coinage, or perhaps closer inspection reveals something that deserves further investigation. A British 1-pound coin dated 1984, an older example that has clearly experienced its journey through circulation. If you have a 1,984-pound coin tucked away in a drawer, an old purse, a family collection, or a box of mixed British coins, do not dismiss it too quickly. Today, we are going to explore its history, design, weight, condition, collector interest, and the question that always creates excitement. What could a 1984 1-pound coin potentially be worth in today's market? Stay with us until the end. And if you enjoy discovering fascinating British coins, make sure you subscribe to World Rare Coin Vault. The 1984 1-pound is part of the early era of Britain's modern pound coinage. The first modern British 1-pound coin was introduced in 1983, making 1984 an especially interesting year because it comes from only the second year of this famous coin circulation. The pound was created to provide a durable denomination for everyday transactions, replacing traditional £1 note in general use. During the 1980s, these coins quickly became familiar throughout the United Kingdom, traveling through shops, banks, tills, vending machines, and countless people's pockets. That history gives the 1984 coin an appealing place in modern British numismatics. Although being from an early year does not automatically make every example rare, collectors often enjoy these early dates because they represent the beginning of a new chapter in British circulating coinage. When we examine front of the coin, the obverse carries a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II facing to the right. The portrait was created by Arnold Machin, one of the most important designers in modern British coin history. The Queen is shown wearing the familiar royal headpiece, and the surrounding lettering identifies the monarch. This early portrait is especially interesting when compared with the later portraits that appeared on British coins. On an old condition example, the highest parts of the portrait can show noticeable wear, with some finer details becoming softer as a result of years of circulation. Nevertheless, the overall image remains a powerful reminder of the period in which the coin was produced. Turn the coin over, and you see the reverse design featuring the royal arms of the United Kingdom. This heraldic design gives the original pound coin a strong and traditional British character. The intricate shield, crown, and surrounding details were designed to create a coin that looked unmistakably British, while also being practical for everyday use. On an older circulated example, the central design may show considerable signs of use, including small marks, scratches, and areas where the finer details have become less sharp. For collectors, however, these signs of age also help tell the story of the coin's journey. The 1984 £1 coin has a weight of approximately 9.5 grams and was produced in nickel brass. It has a substantial feel that people associate with the original round pound. If you have one at home, weighing it with a precise digital scale can be an interesting way to begin examining it. You can also look at the diameter and edge, but remember that measurements should always be considered alongside the coin's complete characteristics. A small difference caused by normal wear or measurement equipment does not automatically indicate a rare error. Now we arrive at the question that every collector wants to hear. How rare is the 1984 £1, and what might it be worth today? You may hear exciting claims that an old 1984 £1 could be worth $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, or even $50,000. These dramatic numbers can certainly attract attention, but they should be treated as hypothetical high-end figures rather than guaranteed values. For example, a seller might place a $10,000 asking price on a supposed rare example, but an asking price does not prove that the coin is actually worth $10,000. The strongest evidence comes from genuine completed transactions involving comparable coins. So, if someone claims that a normal old condition 1984 £1 is automatically worth $5,000 or $20,000, approach that claim carefully and examine the evidence behind it. The real excitement begins when you discover something genuinely unusual. Carefully inspect the date, lettering, Queen's portrait, royal arms, rim, and edge. Look for characteristics that appear to have been created during the manufacturing process rather than damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. A deep scratch, dent, or scrape may look unusual, but is usually simply post-mint damage. Genuine minting errors and recognized varieties can be much more interesting to collectors, particularly when they can be confirmed by specialists or reliable references. The old condition of this 1984 example is also important. A coin that has spent decades in circulation will naturally show signs of wear. The surfaces may contain scratches, contact marks, and areas of dullness, while the highest parts of the design may have lost some of their original sharpness. That does not make the coin uninteresting. In fact, it can make it an excellent historical piece for someone building a collection of early British pound coins. However, condition must be described honestly. Avoid claiming that a heavily worn coin is mint condition simply because it is old or because the main design remains visible. One of the best things you can do with an old coin is avoid cleaning it. It can be tempting to polish a dirty or dull pound coin until it shines, but aggressive cleaning can leave permanent hairline scratches and unnatural surfaces. Experienced collectors generally prefer coins with original surfaces. Instead of trying to make the coin look new, handle it carefully by the edges, store it in a suitable protective holder, and keep it away from moisture and harsh chemicals. If you think your 1984 1 pound might contain an unusual feature, take clear photographs of both sides and the edge. Good lighting can reveal details that are difficult to see with the naked eye. Compare the coin carefully with known examples, and if potential value appears significant, consider having it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional numismatist. This is particularly important when dealing with claims involving thousands of dollars. A professional opinion can help distinguish an authentic minting characteristic from ordinary circulation damage. Next up, the 1983 British 1 pound coin in good condition. And this one deserves special attention because 1983 was the very first year of issue for Britain's modern round 1 pound coin. That alone gives this date an important place in modern British coin collecting. If you have an old 1,983 pound coin sitting in a drawer, an inherited collection, or a box of mixed change, take a closer look before you dismiss it. In today's video, we are going to explore its background, the portrait and reverse design, its weight, condition, rarity, collector interest, and the exciting question of what a 1983 1 pound coin could potentially be worth in today's market. The 1983 1 pound is historically important because it was the first year in which Britain's modern round 1 pound coin entered circulation. Before this period, the pound was commonly represented by a 1 pound banknote, but the introduction of the substantial metal pound coin marked a major change in everyday British currency. The new coin was designed to be durable enough for regular use and quickly became familiar in shops, banks, vending machines, and pockets throughout the United Kingdom. Because 1983 represents the beginning of this coin story, collectors often pay particular attention to examples from this year. However, it is important to remember that being a first-year issue does not automatically mean every 1983 coin is extremely rare or worth thousands of dollars. The individual condition, authenticity, and characteristics of the particular coin still matter enormously. On the obverse, the 1983 1 pound carries a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II facing to the right. This portrait was created by Arnold Mackin and represents the first portrait used on the modern pound coin. The Queen is shown wearing the royal diadem, giving the coin a distinctive and dignified appearance. The surrounding lettering identifies the monarch, while the date confirms the coin's important first year. On a good condition example, you should expect to see visible signs of circulation, but the main portrait and lettering should remain reasonably clear. When you examine the coin closely, look at the highest points of the Queen's portrait, because these areas normally show wear first. Now turn the coin over, and you will see the impressive royal arms design on the reverse. The detailed heraldic shield gives the original pound coin a very traditional British character. The royal arms design was chosen to represent the United Kingdom and to give this new denomination a strong national identity. Even after years of circulation, the main shield and surrounding features can remain clearly recognizable. On a good condition example, some of the smaller details may have softened, and the surface may show marks from everyday handling, but the overall design should still be easy to identify. For collectors, comparing the obverse and reverse together is an excellent way to understand exactly what type of pound coin they have. The 1983 1 pound weighs approximately 9.5 grams and was struck in nickel brass. It has a substantial feel that helped distinguish the new pound from many of the smaller denominations in British currency. If you have one, you can carefully check its weight with an accurate digital scale. It is also worth examining the diameter, thickness, and edge. These measurements can help confirm whether a coin is consistent with the expected specifications. However, remember that a small difference in weight does not automatically mean you have a valuable error. Normal wear, dirt, and differences in measuring equipment can sometimes affect readings. Now we reach the question that makes collectors particularly excited: rarity and value. Because 1983 is the first year of the modern 1 pound coin, it certainly has historical significance. A normal circulated example, in good condition, however, should not automatically be described as a rare multi-thousand-dollar coin. Its value depends on the exact variety, condition, originality, demand, and whether it contains a genuine minting error or another recognized characteristic. The coin's first-year status makes it interesting, but collectors still need to distinguish between historical importance and extreme monetary rarity. You may come across sensational claims that a 1983 1-pound coin could be worth $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, or even $50,000. Those numbers can make an exciting story, but they should be treated as hypothetical high-end figures rather than guaranteed values. For example, imagine someone advertising a supposed 1,983 pound for $10,000. That asking price alone does not prove that the coin is worth $10,000. The same applies to a dramatic $25,000 or $50,000 claim. A genuine market value should be supported by actual completed sales and credible evidence. An ordinary good condition coin should not be valued at thousands simply because a large number appears in an online listing. The real excitement comes when a collector discovers something genuinely unusual. Carefully examine the date, the Queen's portrait, the royal arms, the lettering, the rim, and the edge. Look for features that appear to have been created during the minting process, rather than marks that happened after the coin entered circulation. A scratch, dent, or scrape can sometimes look dramatic under bright light, but these are usually signs of post-mint damage rather than valuable errors. Genuine minting errors and recognized varieties can be much more interesting, particularly when they're confirmed through reliable numismatic examination. The good condition of your 1983 example also plays an important role. A coin described as good condition will normally show noticeable circulation, but its major design elements should remain visible. There may be small scratches, contact marks, and some loss of detail, especially on the raised areas of the portrait and royal arms. That is completely normal for a coin that has spent years in everyday use. If your coin has unusually strong detail, attractive original surfaces, and minimal damage for its age, it may deserve closer attention. Condition can make a significant difference when comparing otherwise similar coins. One important piece of advice for every collector is never to aggressively clean an old coin. You might think polishing the surface will make your 1,983 pound look more valuable, but cleaning can actually damage the original surface and leave permanent scratches. Instead, handle the coin by its edges, keep it in a suitable protective holder, and store it somewhere dry and safe. The 1996 1-pound belongs to the famous generation of Britain's original round-pound coins. By the mid-1990s, the 1 pound had already become a familiar part of everyday British life. These coins traveled through shops, banks, vending machines, tills, pockets, and purses, making them a genuine part of ordinary life during the decade. The round pound was valued for its durability and distinctive appearance, and millions of people handled these coins without giving much thought to their future collectability. Today, however, collectors can look back at these coins with a different perspective. A coin from the 1990s may not sound extremely old, but it can still be interesting because of its design, history, condition, and any unusual characteristics it may possess. On the front of the 1996 1 pound, we see the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II facing to the right. This portrait was designed by Raphael Maklauf and was used on British circulating coins during this period. The Queen wears a royal diadem, giving the obverse a formal and recognizable appearance. Around the portrait are the inscriptions identifying the monarch, while the date confirms the year of issue. When examining a dusty example, it is important to look beyond the surface dirt. Dust can sometimes hide small details, so careful examination under good lighting may reveal features that are not immediately visible. The main areas to inspect include the Queen's portrait lettering, date, and surrounding rim. Turn the coin over, and the reverse carries the royal shield of arms design associated with the traditional round 1 pound. The detailed heraldic imagery gives this coin a strong British identity and makes it visually different from many other denominations. The shield contains intricate elements representing the United Kingdom, and the surrounding inscription completes the traditional appearance. On a dusty coin, the reverse may initially look dull or dirty, but the important question is what lies underneath. Dust and loose surface dirt are very different from permanent scratches, corrosion, or damage. A collector should therefore examine the coin carefully rather than immediately assuming that a dirty surface means a coin is in poor condition. The 1996 1 pound weighs approximately 9.5 grams and is made from nickel brass. Its solid feel is one of the defining characteristics of the original round pound. If you have one in your collection, checking its weight with a reasonably accurate digital scale can be a useful first step. You can also examine the diameter, thickness, and edge. These characteristics help confirm whether the coin appears consistent with the expected specifications. However, measurements alone do not determine value. A coin's market appeal comes from the combination of its date, type, condition, rarity, and antiquity. Now we come to the part that makes coin collecting so exciting: rarity and condition. A standard 1996 1 pound coin is not automatically an extremely rare treasure simply because it has been stored for many years. Many examples entered circulation, so collectors need to look at the specific characteristics of the individual coin. The dusty condition mentioned here is particularly interesting because surface dust itself may be removable without fundamentally changing the coin's underlying condition. However, if the dust is accompanied by corrosion, staining, scratches, or other permanent damage, that can have a different effect on collector appeal. You may see dramatic claims suggesting that a 1996 1 pound coin could be worth $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, or even $50,000. These numbers certainly sound exciting, but they should be understood as hypothetical or sensational figures rather than guaranteed prices for a normal circulated coin. For example, someone might advertise an example for $5,000, but an asking price is not proof that the market will actually pay $5,000. The same applies to a supposed $10,000 or $25,000 coin. A genuine valuation should be based on the exact characteristics of the coin and, ideally, evidence from real completed sales. Imagine, for example, that someone discovers a 1996 1 pound with confirmed unusual minting characteristic and places a hypothetical value of $1,000 on it. Another particularly unusual example might be promoted with an eye-catching figure, such as $5,000 or even $10,000. These numbers make for an exciting treasure hunt story, but they should never be presented as guaranteed values for an ordinary dusty 1,996 pound. The important point is that the possibility of an unusual coin is what makes careful inspection worthwhile. The ordinary coin and the genuinely rare variety are two very different things. If you are examining your own 1996 1 pound, start with the basics. Look closely at the date and lettering. Study Queen Elizabeth II portrait, and then examine the royal shield on the reverse. Check the rim and edge for anything that looks unusual. Look for genuine features that appear to have occurred during the minting process rather than scratches or dents created after the coin entered circulation. Remember that post-mint damage is extremely common, particularly on coins that spent years in pockets, tills, and containers with other metal objects. If the coin is simply dusty, do not rush to polish it. Aggressive cleaning can permanently damage a coin's original surface and create scratches that are much more difficult to overlook than a little dust. Instead, handle the coin carefully by its edges and consider using appropriate professional coin handling methods. If loose dirt can be removed safely without rubbing the surface, that is preferable to polishing. If you believe the coin has something unusual, photograph both sides clearly and include a photograph of the edge. For potentially valuable varieties or errors, professional examination is always a sensible step before accepting spectacular online claims. One of the most enjoyable things about an old pound coin is the history attached to it. The most exciting part of coin collecting is the possibility that something ordinary may deserve a much closer look. A dusty coin can still carry history, character, and collector interest, and sometimes the smallest detail can change the entire story. Keep your old coins safe, examine them carefully, and continue learning, because you never know what might be waiting in the next box of coins. This is World Rare Coin Vault, where every coin has a story and every discovery begins with taking a closer look. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next rare coin adventure.